All right, so I'm pretty excited today. We have, our mayor has given us some marching orders. He wants us to kind of look at software and technology usage throughout the city. And we have Miss Sylvia White, and you're the director of IT.
Yes, ma'am.
So Sylvia, I'm gonna turn it over to you to present to us the information that you have. It looks beautiful.
Thank you.
And so hopefully, it appears to be very comprehensive.
Okay, as Ms. Herbert said, I'm Sylvia White, the IT director, and this afternoon we'll be covering IT. I'll be providing a brief overview, and I'll go over the application portfolio for the City of Columbia. These are citywide applications, and then we'll end with a Chronos update. Okay? First of all, IT is a core back office function working with city departments to deliver services in support of the city's strategic plan. Some of the services that we provide includes telecommunications, city network, data center operations, which involves servers, storage, backups, etc. We support approximately 1,800 workstations and laptops for 2,300 users. Also, we support web design, GIS, application support, and security. Next, Corey. A key component in meeting business needs is governance. So we work closely with the city's program management office to identify solutions to support the city's strategic goals and objectives. This is a collaborative process with city management to ensure we align technology with business goals. Other factors that drive the city's information technology priorities include citywide and departmental needs, information technology needs such as refreshing the environment, replacing components for our technology. Resources could include IT staff, infrastructure, and applications. Next, Corey. Next, this is a business application matrix. This shows applications in use throughout the City of Columbia. It shows the business function, product or service, vendor, the user or business sponsor, which we consider the business owner, and then other users of the systems. So we have several of these applications. They have software upgrades underway, and those include IFAS, Intergov, and Banner.
Sylvia, how many of them are on-premise and how many are served by the cloud?
All of these are on-premise with the exception, oh, no, I'm sorry, all of them are on-premise, but right now, as far as the upgrade, we'll be moving those to the cloud.
On which?
On IFAS, Banner, and Intergov. So Banner, its upgrade started in this past June, so we plan to go live June, July of this year. Intergov, that's underway as well. We have the upgrade to production plan for May of 2022 of this year. And IFAS, we're just getting underway with it. But all of these are moving to the cloud. Next, Corey. So after this slide, we'll go into more descriptions of the various applications, but this one I wanted to highlight the public-facing applications we have deployed for the City of Columbia. Some of these are part of our existing enterprise systems, such as Banner, which includes an online component, customer web access. So now we'll go into the various applications. First, we have Minutetrack, which you guys are familiar with. It allows for the creation, approval of meeting agendas and publishing minutes, to name a few. And this is a hosted system as well. Next.
And I'm sorry
Oh,
I don't know how,
That's
I really am the chair of IT, but when you say hosted, what is that? What are you saying?
It's in the cloud, available in the cloud. So, you know, it allows you to access it from anywhere that you have an internet connection versus being internal to the network on a server in our environment where, you know, there are other things you have to take into account. It's not readily available externally, so we can provide it to city staff via like a VPN connection. Next, we have IFAS. It's our financial, purchasing, human resources, payroll, and budget management system. As I mentioned, an upgrade is in progress to Finance Enterprise. Central Square is the vendor. We're in the process of scheduling business process reviews with the business owners. And hopefully that'll start next month, I believe, Missy, the business process reviews. And basically, that's an in-depth review of the current business processes, identifying any areas of improvement, and further examining any additional requirements the business unit may have.
IFAS has been a point of conversation with the council, and I believe that it was Missy that said that we don't use the full capabilities.
God bless you.
I think it's analogous to this telephone that I carry around. I use probably that much of its capabilities. When you could do your business review with the customer users on the staff, are we going to look at what other things IFAS can do for us?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I believe we're trying to schedule a presentation with the vendor for our end users. We're still doing that to show them the capabilities of the new upgraded system. Yeah.
I believe that, Missy, you said that there's a user group in South Carolina.
Yes. In
South Carolina, and including Richmond County, Augusta, Georgia, Augusta, Richmond County, they participate in our South Carolina users group. So we have a South Carolina only users group that's representative, and I don't know how many other states have something similar.
Okay, next we have GIS. GIS, of course, is our mapping application. We have several applications that are tightly integrated with GIS, and those are Intergov and Cityworks. So they rely heavily on GIS. We have over 300 GIS layers. For example, we maintain address points, parcels, streets, water meters, parking meters, and public safety layers. For instance, like police beats, you know, we set police beat boundaries and make that available to our police department.
Does that GIS have the capability to do for public works what it does for police and fire in identifying where their vehicles are? And
No, that's a
Different
different technology. Our use of AVL, Automated Vehicle Locator Software, which which right now Fleet Services using the AVL system to track their vehicles right now. And it's a hosted solution. I believe it's,
Fleet
yeah.
services,
Yeah,
And then police has its own
they do.
AVL.
Police have their own vehicle location
Harry-
system.
Harry showed me the command post over here,
Yeah.
the DOC, and how he could track all of the public safety vehicles, police and fire, and one of my things is we need to do the same thing for public works vehicles.
Yeah,
They do.
they have something, online vehicle locator. You can go in, you know, supervisors can go in, run reports to determine where a vehicle has been, you know, throughout the day or week or month or whatever, so.
We've made some employment decisions based on that.
I've used it too.
I have a constituent that calls me about once every 6 months about a particular
vehicle?
truck that's parked in her
Well,
yard.
they should
Well,
be able to.
yeah, we can
yeah.
locate that vehicle
Mhm.
and the driver who's in it,
Yeah.
all that. You let us know.
And just for my clarity, that software that they're using for the vehicles wouldn't be included in
No.
your listing, right?
I didn't because
That's
it's more
departmental.
geared to like police, the AVL and they're different systems, so. Next, we have Intergov, which is our land use and business permitting system. Business license, planning and development, and code enforcement are our primary users. The Development Center has been accepting online and electronic submittal since March 2020. All building permits now may be applied and paid for and tracked online using Intergov. Inspectors also have iPads to conduct their inspections and began accepting online inspection requests late last year. We are in the process of implementing e-review. That's for the Utilities and Engineering Department that allow a collaborative online plan review. So further automating the process. Intergov upgrade is scheduled for May of this year. So it's been implemented in our test environment. So the users have been testing it out. So we do have a scheduled update for May. Once the upgrade is complete, we're waiting on that upgrade, for some enhancements to allow us to implement the e-review.
And this may be one of those silly questions, business license online renewals, but you still, the initial application, you still have to come in and do? And is that where we want to be, or is that where we are? In the mic, Jeff, speak in the
Anyone
mic.
getting a new business license, there's going to be certain things that they're going to have to go through, potentially through permitting and others. So there's still a part of it that might be in person, but we are looking at the entire, as we look and review the whole process, that is one of the things that's out there on the checklist to see how we can utilize that online as well.
Have we, since Intergov, we now have a more accessible permitting process by uploading and entering data? Do we have any metrics to show that our timeline for our permitting process has gotten more efficient?
I don't have that information. I would need to get with the business unit to see if they're tracking
Perfect.
any metrics to see if there's any improvement.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next, we have Cornerstone and timekeeping apps. Cornerstone is our online applicant system as well as our performance review system. This is also hosted in the cloud. This app is branded as City Pride internally. City Pride has an online portal that's available for candidates to apply for vacant city jobs, and the system is also used to write performance appraisals for staff. Chronos is our timekeeping and scheduling system. We have branded Chronos as City Time. This software is a key component in ensuring employees are paid timely and accurately. And Telestaff is the scheduling tool used by 911, police, and fire. So it contains their rosters, they update, and all of those feed information back to the financial system.
Sylvia, can we go back to the Cornerstone?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the applications coming in, I still hear folks talking about they never heard back from the city. What are we doing with that process?
So, we've got a new person that Denise has hired. Her name is Sharon Nelson. And, she's working on some of the improvements with the recruiting process. One of the issues is, it's, of course, set up to be automated. So of course, when the application is received, they do get an immediate email saying,
Right.
thank you for applying, blah, 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 blah. The issue we have is when departments are supposed to move those applicants from
Review.
the process of, once they apply, they're supposed to move them to the different stages of the process.
Right.
So they're supposed to move them to, that they're reviewed, then move them to whether they're interviewed, then move them to closed. So what we're having happen is the departments aren't moving those applicants properly. So then because the system is set up to automatically give you responses when you move from one level to the next. It'll say, your application is still in review. Thank you for still considering the City of Columbia as an employer. Then it'll say, for the ones who are set for interviews, it'll say, you have been chosen to be interviewed. You'll receive contact from somebody in the department. They call, they contact them. And then if you're interviewed, the process, they will do the process for those individuals who have
Go
been
through.
interviewed. So they'll move those top 3 or 4 or 5 they want to interview through the process. It's the other 300 applications that they receive that just stay in that status. So we're working with the departments to retrain them to make sure that they're moving those apps and that people are getting the responses from that. They're also looking at streamlining the process so that we can do that even quicker. Because what's happening now is people may apply, and then 6 months later, the department decides that they want to do interviews or never.
Right.
So we're making sure that they are, number one, stand on top of moving those apps, so at least they get the automated responses. Because some people, that's all they want. They just want to know what the
Right.
status is.
Yeah.
So we're working through that, and then working on quicker ways that they can respond. And a lot of it, honestly, is what you pay attention to, right? So we haven't had the manpower to really look at and say, hey, tap Jeff on the shoulder and say, hey, you still got that job out there that you've had out there for 6 months. What are you doing with it? If you're going to not fill it, then let those applicants know that you're not going to fill it. If you're wherever they are in the process. So yes, we hear you. We're working on ways to at least do the automated process, and then ways of enhancing our interaction. Because maybe that person's not a great candidate for that particular job, but they're a good candidate for another job. So we're working on ways that we can help flag or star applicants, and then have other departments know that those applications have been identified as somebody
That's
who
decent applicant.
might be a great fit, and then having a way for the departments to look at that pool of people and consider them for other jobs. But we get, as you can imagine, thousands and thousands of applications.
How many departments would that new position have to interact with, that tap on the shoulder to say, hey, you have 3 jobs open, please update?
So the thing that we've done is there are administrative staff identified in every department that are really in charge of managing their Cornerstone accounts. So although there are managers that can go in and review apps, there's still a central point of contact that is set up for each division.
And that's the touch point employee that we need to hold accountable
Right.
for moving all that along.
Right. So if they're not the ones that move them, because it's workflowed. So it depends on where that job is in the hierarchy of the department as to whether or not that person's ACM is going to be touching those apps, whether it's going to be somebody lower in the organization. But we at least have a central person who we can say, hey, Lynette, Jeff's got some jobs out here. He hadn't looked at them. He hadn't touched the apps. He hadn't done anything. Make him go into his workflow and do it. Or he can delegate it to her and she can do it for him. So we do have a central person. So that cuts down on the number, because as you can imagine, we have
Yeah.
lots of hiring managers that have a license and can go into the system and do things with the system. But we do have one person designated for,
Do you have a separate for Public Works and Columbia Water?
Yep.
So I guess we'll see how quickly we can staff up is a direct correlation with how successful we are with the accountability of the department, pushing along applicants.
that, and also some of the other creative things we've done to try to, partner with staffing companies, partner with Turn 90, SCDC, other places that we're trying to get talent.
Excellent.
But yeah, we're really focused on how do we improve that applicant process, and then how do we get a quicker turnaround on those applicants becoming employees. It's a big focus right now. But so we're working on it, and we're gonna be able to provide, and I don't know if we'll do it in this forum, but we can provide you with kind of a workflow, streamline, all that kind of stuff to.
Now, I do have one other question. So once a person is officially hired for a position, is there an automatic send to the rest of the 300 people? Or is that something that they still have to move them through the process?
So they still have to move them through the process. So we are certainly looking at, now they can do it in batches. You can do a bunch of them at a time, but that's part of it. 'Cause
Right.
they'll take care of those 10
Right.
people, but the 290 that are left, they just leave them hanging out there because they're like, I gotta move on. And that's not a great feature of the software. They have made some improvements on that process, so you can do it a little bit quicker, but it takes the time to do that. And so they will get it if that manager clicks all of those, 290 and moves them, they'll get the notice too. But most likely what happens is the 10 that they've interviewed, the other 9 get the notice. But that other big batch, they don't get the notice, and they just kind of hang out there.
And then, so just for my clarity, because I remember I wanted to send letters to everyone, but I had to pull the names and addresses. That's no longer because it was automated, but we still had to pull names and addresses for the letters. We had to fill like an Excel sheet. None of that anymore.
No, there is a form letter that's
Okay.
embedded in the system that it'll
PDF.
automatically
Okay.
trigger that letter going out.
Yep.
And you can make some adjustments to that letter as well if you'd like to, add some.
Because I don't know if my letters ever. I mean, because, you would get 300, 200 applications. And so, okay. I think those are all of my questions on that. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Next, Corey. Okay, next we have Banner, which is the city's utility billing system. We bill more than 140,000 customers. This application manages all metered water services for the city. It provides billing for water, stormwater, solid waste, and the newly added retiree benefits. Banner allows customers and retirees to review their personal accounts, download statements, and pay via the online portal, which is customer web access, or through automatic bank draft. The Banner upgrade is underway. July 2022 is the estimated go live for it. So we're entering into user acceptance testing right now.
Is Banner the software program that would maybe identify an abnormal bill, say a $11,000 bill that was improperly done? Or
Yes.
something? Is that the program that would do that?
Yes, sir.
So
That's where it would be.
It should have kicked out a red flag and saying, there's no way in the world that this new customer used 11,000.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make that connection.
And so I missed the joke. It does do that, in fact, or it does not do that?
I
does-
don't think it gives a red flag.
Is it supposed to?
Most
don't
systems
think
are gonna be configured based on what we tell it to do.
Yeah.
So there are some configurations that tell you whenever there is some abnormal billing, some abnormal type of activity. But if something is coming through normal, it's just like spell check. If you're trying to spell the word here, and you really meant to spell H-E-A-R, and then you spelled it H-E-R-E, it's not misspelled, so there are some notifications.
And I'll make a
But I'm
note
behind.
of that to see,
Right.
you know,
More clarity about that.
Yeah.
I know that there is a
Because I don't
system
know
that
if they-
does that we're using.
because I know there's some quality
ain't-
checks going on, and there's some, you know, reports will be generated, they're reviewed, you know, to check for any abnormalities.
So-
I'm not sure about triggers, if though, you know, for that particular instance, but I can find out.
Banner would be working with the AMI information. So
Yes.
We get the AMI information, it's fed
The
into the
meters
Banner.
are in Banner, yes, sir. The meter information.
The meter
Water
information
use.
comes into being
Yeah.
from the billing.
I'm just curious, how do you get water and retiree invoicing to get in the same system?
So it's, Banner's just a billing system.
Billing period?
Yes.
Okay.
So it bills all for everything. So we previously, and I'm surprised you guys haven't brought this up, because we're getting a lot of chatter about the retiree billing. And I don't want to go into the whole story, but we have just started billing our retirees for insurance through Banner. Previously, we were billing them through a company called WageWorks. And their customer service was horrible. I mean, we couldn't get any kind of, you know, person that we could call directly. We'd have to go in a queue, and it was just so confusing if we ever wanted to make any retiree billing changes. So we've brought that in-house. People can pay their bill just like they pay a water bill. It comes up in the same system. So we've set up accounts, and we're setting up drafts and all that for our retiree population. Like anything, change is difficult. This population is, yes, very vocal. And we appreciate that, and we want to
They're
make sure.
retired and they have time to be vocal. No, they have time
So,
to be vocal.
you know, they are making it known that some of them aren't real happy with the transition. But we've tried to communicate it as much as we can. Of course, there are gonna be some issues with transition into a whole another system and having people get familiar. But the internal staff did a great job of setting it up. They worked really hard on it. And I think overall, it was very successful. But you're going to have those things that fall through the cracks. Somebody's address wasn't right. Somebody wasn't getting billed properly because WageWorks wasn't reconciling some of our people's bills. So they may have been getting billed incorrectly for years. And now that we have the opportunity to manage the system, we're like, ooh, you were not paying the right premiums. So now we're trying to kind of rectify some of that, and people aren't real happy about it, which you would expect them not to be. So we just ask you to just encourage them to be patient, to give it a minute for everything to settle down, and I think eventually we'll get to the point where it's a well-oiled machine, but it is a process.
And when did we switch that over? How has it
We
been a couple of
started
months?
this year.
Oh,
We started this year.
January.
We started working on it last year and giving them notification that it was gonna change over. And so as you can imagine, 1 month they're getting a bill from one person, the next month they're getting a bill from us. The confusion of that sometimes is, we tried to communicate it, that it was happening and what to look for. But, I think all in all, actually, it's been really, really successful. It's just that there are, some people who we're working with to make sure they get what they need.
And then one last question, just because I don't know, and about how many retirees are we sending those out to?
So the last I looked, it was around 700 retirees,
Okay.
either retirees and spouses,
Okay.
or widows, or, dependents who are still on the coverage. But it was a population around 700.
No more questions from me.
Next. have our work order and inventory management system, which is Cityworks, and Cityworks is tightly integrated with our GIS system. So Cityworks provides work order management, storeroom, and asset management for public works and utilities and engineering. And some of those divisions include the customer care center, Metro wastewater, traffic engineering, forestry, support services, the Lake Murray treatment plant, and solid waste.
Now, and again, forgive me, y'all. Well, see, I'm the new one, so I get to ask these questions. So is Cityworks, would that be responsible for when folks call in with something to Public Works, and then someone comes out and that project or that work order is supposed to be then closed out?
Yes, ma'am.
I will say one of the biggest thing, not biggest things, but I heard a lot was work orders being closed out, but they weren't closed. Is that a system issue or is that a human issue?
I think it's
I would be
an
nice.
accountability issue.
Yes,
For our
sir.
workforce and actual having the workforce. I
Yeah.
think blended together. But, I mean, Howard and I and Clint and Frank Eskridge will give you a wonderful update soon, hopefully. How that is,
So y'all are working on that.
well, we try and go
We've had a couple of briefings from the water department
Yeah.
over the
Okay.
last 2 years.
2 years.
That Will's been with us, and I've had several before that. Cityworks is a great software system, and they first rolled it out in the sewage department because that was the mandate from the federal government. You've got to get that system up and running. It's now, I think, fully operational on the sewer side. The water side is coming along, but it requires them to use their iPads and have a little knowledge of how to do the
Live updates.
the live updates, and some of the people that we had working on the cruise disregarded, they were used to the paperwork, and they did not like to use the iPad, and so we have found in the last few months that there are many work orders that had been completed that just had not been closed out
Or entered.
to get out of the system. Clint sends out a monthly report that's got a lot of good information in it, and the last one showed the decrease in the number of work orders that were open, because we now have people going back to check those work orders to see, well, has the stuff been really done, and whoever it was did not close it out properly. And the other thing that was good about the last report was the line item going up on the number of work orders closed in 1 month by the subcontractors or the four contractors
Yeah,
that we've
they're
hired.
doing the work.
It had been at this level for a number of months, and now it's going straight up because of the change in the procurement schedule that's allowing them to move quicker in those work orders. So we will get you down to Columbia Water and let them show you how Cityworks is supposed to work. And once we get them, I told Clint a couple of years ago, we need to hire a teenager to go out with each one of the crews and be in charge of
That's true.
inputting information.
That's true.
Because the 60-year-old that had been working for the city for 40 years didn't like an iPad, but a teenager would just, eat it up.
Yeah, I hired a lot of young campaign people. 'Cause I'm not that person, so I get that one.
So that covers the core applications. As a note, I wanted to let you guys know as well that the Program Management Office, along with IT, will be meeting with all the departments within the city. We'll be doing an inventory of the apps, trying to identify any gaps that they feel that they have, and any future plans to upgrade their systems.
And
And
so,
Missy, you can chime in.
Oh. well, I was going to say, because one of the other questions was pros and cons of each, and if you had any recommendations. do you want some more time to, or do you have some now?
Well, I would prefer the business unit identified because it's based,
Because
you know, they
they're the
pick
ones that are
system
using it.
based on their business requirements and their
Okay.
business processes. And, you know, I can speak to the technical side.
I got you.
As far as, you know, we use the right technology, servers, environment, operating systems, that type of thing. But the business owners know better their business processes and whether a system meets their needs. And we work closely with them on that, you know. We vet the applications, you know, verify security, make sure that the technology is compatible with our environment.
So that's,
You have standards. You have
Yeah,
standards
we
that they must
stand
so that's where y'all fit into this kind of umbrella of all these programs. You check the boxes for infrastructure, for workforce, for what we have in place. Do you know the ins and outs of each program?
Oh, definitely not. I can load an operating system. I know how to connect the system, so
I think
Yeah, but-
another part of that too is the governance process.
yes, that's huge.
When we, and I don't know when we really put that into place, but
2 or 3 years now,
it's been a great
4
tool
years.
to help the end user identify what the needs are and evaluate what's purchased and what's bought, and kind of keeping the resources managed properly. Because a lot of
So if
times,
it's taking up too much server space or something.
something like, or if it's gonna require, because what we were seeing a lot is that the police department would say, I have a need for tracking the cars. And they just go out and they just buy something. And then they would say, okay, IT, help me figure out how to
And it doesn't
install
do this,
it. And it's not doing what I want it to do.
that. Right.
And it would be a process where you didn't go through, they didn't have a process where they could evaluate it, outline all the business needs, and then see if that software would meet those needs. A lot of times you have people come to your door, knock on your door and say, hey, I got this wonderful little thing, it'll help you do blah, 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 let me sell it to you. And the departments would go, yes, I have a need, that sounds great. But then when you dig into it, you find out, well, it's got all these requirements and it won't work on a server and you need new equipment and all this kind of stuff. So the governance process really eliminated a lot of that stuff going on.
That happens early in the process now.
Yes, not after the fact. And so now everybody knows what resources are gonna be needed to support that. We're able to tell that person, no, you don't need that. We already have this software that's already doing what you think you need done, but you're just not using it the way you need to be using it. So we have a lot of that process happening as well. What I'll say about any system, because I've been here and been working through implementing several, is no system solves all your problems, right? You're still gonna have people using the systems that you have. So you have to take that into consideration. And I know that, you know, we talk a lot about, is there something better? I think that IT and Missy's department are always asking that question. Is there a better software that'll do this a little bit better or do that a little bit better? And so we're always open to that. But, you know, there's no perfect software out there. There are no perfect systems. They may do better on this, but do worse on that. And they may be, especially when you're talking about an enterprise system like an IFAS. So,
This is an opportunity.
yeah.
Do we have a lot of overlap right now for a system that does the same thing as this system? Or have we
We've gotten
been
better
vetted those out over the
over the years.
years when the subscriptions come up and whatever?
Yeah, we've gotten better at it, so.
But there are still a handful?
I can't think of
Yeah, I can't think of
any,
That's good.
yeah, but I'll look at it.
Perfect.
But we've done a good job of, you know, weeding out the overlaps, so.
And so for our purposes, I guess, moving forward, and I forgot to ask for budget to see how much, the cost associated with all of these things, because I'm sure we're paying we don't have anything that we just buy and we get to use it like the little apps on our phones. Like the cost associated annually with most of them.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, a lot of them are set up where they have licenses. Some of them, like Chronos. You have to buy a certain number of licenses for users to use them. And you get charged a license fee.
And then when they do upgrades, you don't have to pay for upgrades, right?
It depends. It depends on what it is, what the upgrade is.
Like Banner, IFAS, we had to pay for the upgrades for those.
Is that because it was adding more functionality, or, and I guess when I was thinking upgrades, I was thinking we've made some changes to some fundamental things, upgrade versus upgrade adding additional functionality.
Typically, the cost comes from the vendor as far as their resources for, project management, to move the project through, providing, resources on their side, like business analysts, which they'll have, or subject matter experts will come in and work with our staff to do the BPR. So there's a cost associated with that as well.
But you
And
mean like features that get upgraded? Like maybe you have a software and now
It's part
you
of it.
can, click on this instead of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a better way to make sure we understand your
Well,
question.
so when I say, and I'm talking in very fundamental terms, let's say they fix something that they know is a problem, and there's an update or upgrade.
That's part of
we-
maintenance.
So that normally wouldn't be a cost, but if you do anything to add functionality,
So I can give you two examples right now. The banner upgrade that we're going through right now, you buy it straight out the box, if you will, and you pay a license fee for that. And what Sylvia mentioned with regards to the upgrade cost, where we pay for additional professional services associated with that license for that upgrade. Banner would be one where we do have certain customizations, where we have asked for some kind of customization to the base software to meet our business needs. Obviously, when we try to upgrade, we try to reduce those customizations as much as possible, because those customizations can limit you from being able to continue your upgrades, or they cost you and continue to go forward. But in some cases, that business requirement outweighs any other cost for that
Right.
requirement, so we maintain that piece. Then, for instance, like the IFAS upgrade, that was one of them. Part of the reason why we're not on a current version, or we are so as far behind as we are with our financial software, is because we utilized a customized cashiering system. We've eliminated that, the customized cashiering, and now use a third party for our cashiering system, which is one we probably should have put on the list. We utilize a third-party cashiering system, which means that we can now upgrade the IFAS product to a more current version. The upgrades now, with moving to a cloud solution, upgrades are really part of that cost. So the only time you are really paying is if you have to have professional services, as Sylvia mentioned, or somebody to either help you walk through your business process to see if you've got opportunities for improvement with the utilizing the new components. But we try to encourage as few customizations as possible. The vendor also encourages or discourages customizations because it can limit you from being able to upgrade and go forward. Now that we're moving to cloud, those upgrades come, almost automatically in some cases. But there is a restriction too, because we don't want to fix something that wasn't broken in the first place, so we do have to test and modify some stuff like that. So it really can vary. But then also too, the pricing of cloud solutions has switched from what these on-prem solutions are, and it's really impacting cost going forward. So those are conversations we'll be having as we go along. Whereas before, where you bought a license, you purchased something. Now this is like paying your cable bill. You're paying a subscription, so you're not ownership anymore. So the funding mechanisms for a cloud solution versus a hosted solution changes that. I mention that only because of what that does to the upgrade. That's one of the benefits of it, but that's also one of the downfalls, is that costing component. So yeah, so we try to keep customizations to a minimum.
Yes.
Sylvia, you don't have Microsoft on here, but Office 365 would be
Yeah, yeah.
a big piece of software that we use. That's
It
what
is,
connects
Office
us to them.
365
Mm.
for email, and we also are using SharePoint.
You can mention that as well, too, in the sense that this listing is just really, these are the enterprise-wide solutions.
core
These are not every
applications.
solutions or your infrastructure level
Yeah, I
solutions.
consider Office 365 more about.
When you say infrastructure, you talking about the actual water plant, software, everything they use there?
Thinking the
IT
IT
side.
infrastructure, like
Oh,
your
okay, gotcha,
know,
gotcha,
Microsoft
email,
is, yeah,
yeah.
the things that just make your computer even work at all or something.
gotcha.
So for our next steps, if we wanted to get into pros and cons, because I want to make sure that I meet the goal and fulfill this assignment that was given to me with some recommendations, are you suggesting or stating that we would then need to get input from the users, from the sponsors? Can we do that in an easy, I'm all about easy way, survey, or do you think that needs to be, I don't want everyone to have to come in and talk about it, but I was thinking, I might be thinking too elementary Google document form with series of questions. Is that too simple? Y'all tell me.
Yeah, we can do, I mean, that could be our kickoff survey,
Part of the
with
survey.
the departments, and just start with the core applications.
So part of what Sylvia mentioned too is the PMO with IT was already in the process of putting together a survey of our departments.
Oh, great.
Different departmental, but those, looking at different departmental level applications, we can certainly include some
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
discussions about
we can
grades.
work on these core applications, and, work with the departments and have them identify. I mean, that was the goal
That
of
also
this, is to identify any gaps, so pros and cons of the system.
gaps, and that also speaks, Mr. Brennan, to what you mentioned about overlaps. That's part of the process too, is oftentimes applications come with multiple features that you don't utilize, but in some cases, it may utilize, that their version of it may not meet the needs for everyone else. so
Right.
we utilize in a different way.
Like, I'm curious if, the mayor and I think all of city council would love to have a way to track infrastructure issues as they bubble up, erode away. That instead of, our customers and our residents call in things that they see. Is there something that we can unlock in Cityworks that does that, where, our wonderful city staff who's out there day in and day out on the streets, looking at right-of-ways can log? I know Mayor Rickman mentioned there's software out there that does that, but again, that gets back to, can we just unlock this certain section of Cityworks that interfaces with the customer service, emails as they come in, to really get us a true day-to-day listing of what's going on?
So part of our governance process does allow for first evaluating what we have capable internally before we go out into the market to see what's available. So that is a component of it. Sometimes that's a little frustrating
Right.
because there's this perception, I already know what it is I want to get. But we certainly do try to do that due diligence internally before we just seek out
Wonderful.
externally. It's time on the front end, but it saves you a lot of time on the back end, so as long as we can be patient about.
Yeah, I mean, learning a new
That
software,
evaluation.
employee hours to learn all that, yeah, absolutely.
And that's an effort too. It's not like that's, without effort. I mean, that's still an effort, but it also helps keep you fresh on what your features have. Mr. Duval mentioned, your cell phone, you get it and you're like, okay, I can make a phone call and text, and that's how you do. And then once you need to do email, then you figure out how to do email. And then your calendar, and then your contacts and everything. So it's a building process and constant renewal.
Well, thank you for staying on top of it.
And then do you want to give us the Chronos before we
Yes, ma'am.
wrap up with our next steps?
So Chronos, it went offline December 11th, so that impacted the entire city of Columbia staff. So we lost access to the timekeeping piece and the scheduling piece, which is telestaff.
Is that a ransomware?
It was a
situation?
ransomware incident. They're not giving too many details in regards to it.
And so Sylvia, does that mean there are some components that you do still have access to?
No, we
Okay.
lost the timekeeping piece and the scheduling piece. So those are the two components that
Okay.
we use
Okay.
with Chronos, and those were impacted. They've been in communication with us, you know, with all their customers, so during their review.
Let me add.
Okay.
So what Sylvia said, this is all of their customers internationally, not just the city of Columbia.
I was getting to
Okay.
that.
Clear on
Do we have an idea of what all their customers, what that number looks like?
The health,
yeah, I
the
mean,
Are we talking about
healthcare
hundreds, are we
industry.
talking about
Yeah. They're
hundreds
one
of
of the
thousands or
yeah.
tens of
Oh,
thousands?
yeah.
Yeah, millions of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they're one of the big providers of this kind of software out there.
And that's why they wanted
To the
that's why they
world.
got their ransom rate.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
why they were targeted.
So, you know, we're in constant communication with Chronos. They did send out a report indicating that 2 of their customers' data was stolen. Of course, city IT was not impacted. And just to note, we don't store social security or bank account information in Chronos. So that was good news that we weren't impacted. We regained access to Chronos in mid-January, and IT, HR, payroll, PMO, we all worked together to evaluate, do data validation, configure time clocks in preparation to go live again. So, you know, there was a lot of testing we had to do and in preparing to go live again. So we are live now as of February 19th.
Yeah, well, look at God.
We're still in communication with Chronos, you know, keeping an eye on their ongoing investigation. But during this outage, you know, we still had to get the payroll out. So in order to ensure that happened, the budget analysts provided a summary pay file to payroll, and they were, you know, the information, it was a roll-up of pay information and benefit information that allowed them to get the payroll out. Because that happened like on the beginning of a pay cycle. So after that, after the employees were paid for that cycle, we went to an Excel-based spreadsheet, which you may remember, we pulled out the old spreadsheets, but we enforced, we didn't print them out, you know, we left the manual process out and enforced, you know, the digital copy of the spreadsheet. So they were submitted to a central location. We did some validation to ensure the forms were, you know, filled out correctly, and then payroll came in and did their functions and produced, you know.
That happened on
the
Christmas
pay.
Eve?
December 11th.
12/24.
That was the first paycheck.
Yeah.
And Chronos is not used to process payroll.
It's
not-
IFAS,
IFAS is actually what we use
Yeah.
for payroll.
Yeah.
This is just the timekeeping.
which was a good thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so Chronos is timekeeping and
Schedule.
Scheduling.
scheduling.
Yeah, the
anybody
scheduling piece
who-
is primarily police, fire, and 911, you know.
They have
They
those
perform their
dynamic
rosters and,
schedules.
yeah.
Yeah, Chronos being down was a major deal.
It was.
That without our employees jumping in there, our 2,000 employees wouldn't have got a paycheck.
They did
Right
a great job.
at Christmas time. So they did an amazing job. And you guys, and council members wouldn't have gotten their money either.
But, you know, the key is we, you know, developed an alternative method, you know, to get that payroll out. And, you know, that was key during this outage. And, you know, that's something we have to think about. If you were, you know, to lose access to a system, what's your fallback plan? And that's key in continuity planning, so.
Well, I'm old school, so I still know how to operate everything. I still want everything printed out, and, you know, I think there's some value with that. Well, Ms. White, and I'm sorry, what's your name, sir?
Cool. My name is
I'm
Corey
sorry.
Williams.
Corey.
Corey Williams is just.
Okay, Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
And Missy, you're a part of the presentation?
The PMO,
Okay.
Program Management Office, is a
We're
big
married.
partner of IT.
Well, no, thank y'all so much for this, and I'm thinking about next steps. I will first ask if Mr. Brennan or Mr. Duvall have any recommendations before I.
My big recommendation is what Sylvia covered at the first of the meeting. I want to look at opportunities to put things in the cloud that are major for us, like IFAS. But IFAS and Banner, and what was the third one?
Intergov.
Yeah. Those would be three good ones to get.
Both Banner and IFAS, Banner's upgrade is upgrading us to a cloud, and IFAS's environment is also upgrading us to a cloud.
Intergov is still on premise right now.
I think that would be super to get those done. And then all of your 365s in the cloud.
Yes.
That's stuff I use every day.
Now, I have on here I have a list that the police and all of their technology is separate. So would that warrant a separate discussion to get them in, or is
Well,
that so top secret that we shouldn't?
The things that they have separate from what you have on your list here are specialized police.
Yes,
stuff.
specialized police applications, like their records management, their field-based reporting.
But y'all service it all.
Yes, we do.
You want a list of?
It might be good just to see what a list would look like.
That's that survey that we're talking about too, since this was focused on enterprise-wide applications.
And then I did have a note on here, the cashier system. I just wrote it
I
down.
should have included that because that's used by multiple departments as well. You know, the customer care on Hart Street and engineering for tap fees and parking uses it, so I'll update that.
And then, so with respect to a survey, since you all are already working on a survey, what was the timeline that you were currently working on? Not asking you to change it, I'm just asking what was the current timeline that y'all were working on?
We were probably looking over the next several months,
Yeah.
just for the,
Scheduling, resources, meeting with the various departments, so it'll take us a minute.
Madam
But-
Chairman, I think a good point for us to be what Will mentioned a minute ago. Let us get a briefing from Clint and Columbia Water.
Maybe also the emergency center.
Maybe that would be our next meeting.
So we have Clint, Emergency Services.
Clint would be mainly Cityworks, but he needs to get Tina up to speed on what's happening.
I'm not
Oh,
that slow, Howard. I'm not that slow.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
A field trip? Love it. Love a field trip. I love a good field trip.
You can see the Beltline facility and
Beltline.
Beltline,
Okay.
and then EOC is across the street. And I think there might be two separate meetings, though.
Yeah, well, we have time, so we'll do, if you could check and see. I don't have a preference as to which one we do first or second. Do y'all have a preference? Whatever works for their schedules too.
Do those visits have to be in the formal setting of a subcommittee? Madam Chairman, I would suggest information only for those two items.
We will work with you to find a time that you're available.
Sounds good to me.
On Tuesday, that you're not doing anything.
Yeah, Tuesday, I'm wide open on Tuesdays. And so are we going to do those informally before our next meeting? Is that the intent?
Before our next committee meeting. you know.
Right. So that means it's going to be a minute before we have our next committee meeting. Yes. All right, and we'll put that date out. Any other questions or anything that I haven't covered?
Thank y'all for the good briefing.
Yes, this was, I learned a lot. Yeah, and I think that gives time, a little more time, for that, for you all to work on that process. Does that make sense? So our next meeting will be an informal meeting where we do the tours. And that gives y'all about 60 days? 60 days, yes. Thank you, Erica. Anything you need from us to help? All right, do I have to adjourn this, or you move to adjourn? All right, meeting, non-debatable motion? I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll see y'all next time.